I challenge you to a duel.
Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Movie Duel podcast. My name is Peter and I am your host. Each episode of the Movie Duel podcast we select a subject that's based around films, and then myself and my co-host each pick a film that we think best fits that subject and then discuss accordingly. The only rule is that over the course of this podcast we cannot discuss the same film twice. So this week I'm bringing you a brand new guest co-host in Tarquin Mandrake. He'll be joining us shortly, but just first of all, just a few little bits before we go into the main podcast. A few bits of detail about how you can get in contact with us, if you want to leave us a review or give us feedback, or even if you're interested in maybe becoming a co-host on the Movie Duel podcast. It doesn't need to be full-time, it can be sporadic. If you want to just give it a go, anything like that, it's fairly simple to do, as long as you've got a microphone, a PC and a set of headphones. Really, it's pretty simple, and a webcam. That's about it. But if you want to get in touch with us, you can do so through the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Movie Duel podcast. You can email us on movieduelpodcast@gmail.com, and we are now on Twitter as well, at @MovieDuelPod. So there are all ways that you can get in touch with us and let us know what you think. You can follow us and see updates on upcoming episodes. Be dropping the selection announcements to let you know what films will be discussed on future episodes and where you can find those films to watch them before the episodes drop. And for me personally, you can follow me on Letterboxd. I have a Letterboxd account, which is Pete Marshall, so you can keep up to date with films that I'm seeing at the moment, and whether I like them or not. Okay, so without further ado, let's head on over and meet our brand new guest co-host.
Allow myself to introduce myself. So,
big movie duel, welcome to Tarquin.
Hey.
Hi Tarquin, how are you?
Barely alive.
Do you want to start off by telling the listeners a little bit about yourself, Tarquin?
Well, I'm a lowly factory worker by night, asleep by day. In fact, such is my level of commitment, I've spent 8 years working on the night shift in a factory in preparation for this podcast. I'm a film fanatic of long standing, and when I'm not delivering messages for the mob or investigating strange noises in the root cellar, then I like to watch movies. All kinds, I'm not fussy. As long as they elicit an emotional response and immerse me in a different world, then it's time well spent. Comedy and horror are my bedrock foundation, but as I get older, I'm increasingly drawn to historical drama.
Fantastic. So, obviously, with this being your first time on the Movie Duel podcast, it was my pick of subject. So, a couple of episodes ago, myself and Vanessa discussed Paul Verhoeven, and I thought it was quite nice to go back to that sort of style of subject in terms of picking a particular director. And this time around, I went for best Ron Howard film. So, was this an easy choice for you, Tarquin?
Very much so, yeah. There's one film of his that I just loved my whole life.
Yeah? So there was no other films in sort of consideration for you?
No. But, I mean, he's done some good films since. I've been checking out his back catalogue lately, and there's a couple that run it close, but it's still my choice.
Yeah, I think I was very much the same. You know, my choice was something I saw at a young age, and
Imprinted.
It was, easily what I would consider to be his best. So a little bit background about Ron Howard. Born Ronald William Howard on the 1st of March 1954 in Duncan, Oklahoma. He is the eldest son of Jean Spiegel, who was an actress, and Rance Howard, who was a writer, director and actor. He first found fame as a child actor on the Andy Griffith Show.
Now, Sheriff Taylor, did you not say that Post Toasters had the cornflakes crackling with fresh corn flavor?
Well...
Answer yes or no, please.
Yes.
And didn't you say that from field to flake, post toasties never lose their fresh corn flavor? Yes or no?
Yes.
And then later as Richie Cunningham in Happy Days.
Oh, blind date, huh? Yeah, I'm not too good on blind dates.
Okay, I'll just make up some excuse. Hi, Millicent.
I found my thrill.
Which would be, I don't know about you, Tarquin, but that would probably be my first introduction to the man Ron Howard.
Oh, I mean, Happy Days was enormous when I was a kid. It was just total cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, I think it was definitely something that, you know, I mean, even though it was, you know, what, late 70s, early 80s, it was still, you know, doing the rounds even here in the UK, you know, well into my sort of teens, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I was greasing back my hair. I was into Grease. I was into American Graffiti. You know, all that stuff. The Fonz.
Do you recognize this voice? Hey!
His directorial debut was Grand Theft Auto, no relation to the game, in 1977, and he would go on to direct 27 feature films across a number of different genres, and winning Best Picture and Best Director for A Beautiful Mind at the 2002 Academy Awards, which is a film I haven't seen, actually. It's one of his I haven't seen.
Recommended. You know, a very good Russell Crowe performance.
I'll check that out. I had a little bit of trivia for Mr. Ron Howard. According to his daughter Bryce Dallas Howard, all four of his children were named after places they were conceived. So Bryce Dallas Howard in Dallas, Paige Carlisle and Jocelyn Carlisle at the Hotel Carlisle in New York City, and Reed Cross after a specific road.
I mean, that's not freaky or disturbing at all. You know, it's not a conversation.
Well, this is according to Bryce Dallas Howard, so she could just be taking the piss, I suppose. In 1971, he was a contestant on The Dating Game, which I'm assuming is the sort of American version of Blind Date, and ended up choosing Bachelorette number 2, named Nola Green. He's apparently a huge fan of cricket. He attended the Final Ashes test between England and Australia in September 2005, whilst he was filming The Da Vinci Code, and was spotted mingling with players in the Australian dressing room. Just a little aside from that, it was actually partly filmed in my hometown, Lincoln. Da Vinci Code, Lincoln Cathedral doubled for some of the back spaces of St Paul's Cathedral. I think it's a scene where he throws up the is it the Codex? Is it Codex or something in the air, and it smashes on the floor.
Okay, so the last scene with the monk.
No, it's with Ian McKellen. There was a big buzz around Lincoln because we don't get very many famous people in Lincoln. There was definitely Ian McKellen and Tom Hanks with his mullet. And for an American Film Institute poll, Howard chose One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest as his favourite film.
He's got Vincent Schiavelli from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in it, so, in Night Shift.
It has, yes. And interestingly, before we get into any films, he is, or will be, our X-Files connection for the night. Because he was in a season 2 episode called Humbug, where he played Lanny, who had an unformed conjoined twin who could separate and go out and eat people.
Yeah, the famous Circus Freak episode.
Yes, one of the best. So, obviously, with it being my choice of subject, Tarquin, it was your first pick for the film. So, what film did you go for?
Night Shift, 1982.
Chuck Lumley works nights. He's a civil servant. And so is Bill. Chuck and Bill have a very strange partnership. They also have a happy staff. Their business is growing. Their customers have no complaints. And the future looks good. Chuck is a little too serious about his work. So, Bill is teaching him to take things easier. After all, night work can be fun. You just have to know where to look for it. Night shift. It makes the day seem dead by comparison.
Okay, so it's about this guy, Chuck, this very unfortunate guy, Chuck, who is just belittled and embarrassed by life. He was a financial whiz on Wall Street, but he couldn't hack it. He couldn't take people running away with his hard work and his ideas. And so he's retreated into working in a morgue and having a very second-rate existence, bullied by his fiancée and his mum. And then he is saved from himself by Michael Keaton, playing Billy Blazowski, and his neighbour, Belinda, a prostitute, played by Shelley Long.
So, tell me a little bit about your sort of history with this film then, Tarquin. When did you first see it?
Okay, so it would have been way back in the video era, and probably attracted by like a risque, nudie trailer or something like that. And thought, my God, I have to see this. It's got breasts in it. But and then just taken in by the world, the story, and it's a very funny script. There's lots of great gags in there, and just beautiful acting.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was the first time I'd seen this film. It was not something I'd had any experience with at all. First port of call was just sort of watch the trailer, and then when I got into the film, it was not really what I expected. The trailer I saw anyway was more of a unlikely pairing.
Is it the feet walking down the road?
No, it was just more about sort of, it pushed more the sort of, Chuck was this sort of nice, normal, sensible guy, and Bill was this sort of crazy person who's come into his life and causing this upheaval. There wasn't really any mention of, sex workers and pimps and that kind of thing in it. So once the film got started and there's this, quite lengthy sort of chase scene with this pimp being sort of chased down by these other two.
Franklin, you forgot your coat.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt Johnson.
Yeah. I was like, what the hell is this film? But I must say I did enjoy it. I thought it was
good.
It was quite a clever film, definitely.
That's a beautiful sequence at the beginning, with the steam rising up from the pavement and the sex workers plying their trade, and then the two evil hoodlums chasing down Franklin.
And a Burt Bacharach soundtrack as well.
Yeah, pretty shit soundtrack, I thought. The only song I liked was Talk Talk by Talk Talk.
Well, I'm a sucker for a bit of Burt Bacharach, God rest his soul. But yeah, I know what you mean. I thought it was a good soundtrack, but I wouldn't say it necessarily fit the film a lot.
Yeah,
I think there were points where it was a little bit
cheesy.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah,
cheesy, sentimental, which is kind of what they're going for, I guess. There are a couple of uplifting moments where Chuck is seeing some hope in his life, where it kind of fit, but not for me personally. Yeah,
and I mean, you've got a couple of people in this film that are, I would say, is playing against type, or the type that I would have seen them. Henry Winkler, for starters. Yeah. His most famous role is the Fonz, the cool guy. The guy that nothing phases him.
I want to be Richie Cunningham this time, is the quote.
Yeah, and you can see that, and it's. And he does it really well as well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole crux of the film is, the pathos and the sadness of, a man who's just accepting second best all the time, and he does it beautifully,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's quite... it's not really a sex scene, but when he's...
But Belinda comes around.
Belinda comes round, and there's all these sort of provisions to getting into bed and checking. I think doors. The doors are locked, and
you mean his fiancée Charlotte? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fat. You're not fat. fat?
I'm fat.
This is my one night off. I look forward to this all week. Why don't you come to bed?
I just want to lose 6 more pounds.
Tonight? Why don't you run into bed? Maybe you'll lose some pounds along the way.
All right, Chuck, just don't look at me.
Okay.
Are the lights out?
Yeah.
Are the lights out, Chuck?
Yes. Yes.
That just really tickled me. I thought that was very I don't want to say too much, but I've experienced that before, should we say?
Yeah.
And then it's finally sort of
getting somewhere.
He's very sort of nixed by Belinda in the end. I think is she entertaining some cowboy? I think, was it a trucker or something?
Yeah, it looked like Will Ferrell, this enormous cowboy in his underpants. and his horrible fiancée sends him around to turn the music down, and she doesn't care if he gets beaten to death. You know, I mean, she's tell him to turn down his horrible music. What do you mean horrible music? Horribly good.
Yeah, and there's a line early on, I think it's where she's identifying her former pimp, and the officer asks her who.
Do you recognize this man as Franklin Delano Roosevelt Jones?
Yes.
What was your relationship with the deceased?
He was my Avon lady.
Which is a term I haven't heard in years. Avon lady. Whether that's still a thing, I don't know.
Another important scene, may I add, because it's there that Chuck establishes a connection with Belinda, like the horrible detective. Sergeant Averback is like, you know, she's just a whore. That was her pimp.
Yeah. And
instead, Chuck says hello, you know, and treats her like a human being, and you know, she appreciates that, and I think that's where the connection is made.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, you know, it's probably quite pertinent to talk about the depiction of sex workers in this film. I mean, you know, this is going to come from a couple of guys, but I think it's quite respectful. I don't think it's all the sex workers that are sort of portrayed in the film. You've got a couple that are sort of a bit ditzy in that, but they're, you know, I think it portrays them well as being quite savvy, strong people who are just, you know, for certain parts of the film and the story are scared of, you know, repercussions from their former pimp and other people and things like that.
Yeah, just fundamentally decent human beings trying to make a living, get by, you know, provide. And it's refreshing for the 80s, you know.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I mean, this was, what, 82?
Yeah, and there are a lot of exploitative sex comedies around as film distributors realise, oh, sex sells. You know, it was that era, the Risky Business, Dr. Detroit, Porky's, you know. Yeah,
and that's it. I mean, this is a completely different kind of film. It's not. Although, you know, you could argue that, you know, sex work, prostitution is.
Let's break that word down.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times it'll help you to understand a word if you break it down. So let's do that now, shall we? Pros doesn't mean anything. Forget about that. Tit, I think we all know what that means. Two, okay, two, tit. And shun, of course, from the Latin to shun, to say no, thank you anyway, I don't want it, to push away. Doesn't even belong in this word, really, so let's get rid of that.
Yeah. But, you know, I think, yeah, it doesn't creep into that sort of seediness that it could quite easily have done, like you say, in comparison to a lot of late 70s, early 80s films, or most 80s films, I suppose. You know, you can tell it's made by somebody who's wanting to treat the subject matter respectfully.
You know, his wife's mum was an escort. I don't know how this pertains to the whole thing, but yeah, and his first film script, the one he took to Roger Corman before he ended up being bunswaggled into Grand Theft Auto, was about a sex worker. So I guess it was a theme on his mind at the time. And
oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very glossy depiction of prostitution. It's of sex work. It skips all the gory details. You see some nudity in the background, but on the whole it's kind of like a fun thing depicted in montages. You know, the girls going off to work, money accumulating, flashy clothes being bought.
Yeah.
None of a nitty gritty.
I think you get more of that sort of bawdiness and and the, that sort of unhinged sort of behaviour, I suppose, it comes from Bill and his friends. That's the sort of this frat party in the film that is a bit more akin to something like Porky's and those kind of films. But it's probably a good time to talk about the character of Bill, Michael Keaton. I mean, for me, my first experience of Michael Keaton is Batman. I was just the right age for Michael Keaton as Batman, and obviously a lot at the time. There was a lot of backlash.
Yeah, why the fuck have they cast Michael Keaton, this funny, crazy guy, as Batman, the sad, somber thing? And he just showed what a great actor he is, how capable he can get into the role and just give you the full human,
Exactly. And I mean, he, so I never sort of saw that anything before Batman. Beetlejuice I saw after that, but I'd not had any experience of him as this comedian. Obviously this film, things like is it Mr. Mom, anything like that, I've not had any experience. So, and really since Batman, he didn't do a whole heap of comedies after that.
Yeah,
I think Multiplicity is probably the only one I can think sort of 90s. So I'd not had that experience of him as a comedian, as being a funny character, I suppose. So it's quite refreshing to see that, and his timing's pretty good. His delivery. I mean, just
every line, he just nails it, and he brings so much to it.
Yeah. Well, that's it. You've got this. In sort of modern themes, somebody to compare him to a little bit of a Steve Stifler or somebody like that, where he's this sort of bawdy character who, doesn't care, has all these crazy plans and things like that.
Yeah.
But
compulsively overshares details of his life that Chuck just doesn't want to know about.
Yeah.
How you doing? I'm Bill Blazejowski. You call me Billy Blaze. You must be Chuck, right? Nice shoes. Hey, this is all right. Guess this is where I'm going to be working. I'm your new partner. Swish! They're going crazy in the arena. They can't believe it. It's unbelievable.
But he's got that likability as opposed to somebody like a Steve Stifler character. He's sweet at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, like the film was originally planned as a Aykroyd-Belushi vehicle. Dan Aykroyd as the stiff Chuck guy, and Belushi as Bill. And you wouldn't have had that heart, I think. You wouldn't have had the soul that he brings to it. The vulnerability.
No. I think Belushi does crazy really well. You'd struggle to get that heart, definitely with him. And I'd even argue that you'd struggle to get that nicey-niciness from Dan Aykroyd. He sort of proved he can pull off this sort of smug arsehole in Trading Places, but I don't think he could have pulled off Loser, really, which is essentially what Henry Winkler is portraying in Chuck.
Yeah.
But there was a few lines. Well, a line early on that really made me chuckle. Chuck shows him the picture of Charlotte.
Hey, Chuck, who's this? Wife? Fiancé. Nice frame.
Yeah, people have
really
a strange... That's a running gag. People have a strange reaction to photos of Charlotte. Like, early on, with the detective in the morgue, he takes out his picture of his wallet just to prove that he's not having anything to do with Belinda. Look, I've got a fiancé. And the detective and Belinda look at the photo, and it's like they're staring into the void. They can't say anything, and it's just this illimitable darkness looking at Charlotte. Nobody knows what to make of her.
I think and that's it's just really clever sort of scripting, I suppose. Because Charlotte, Gina Hecht. Yep. Am I saying that right? She's not an unattractive person, but it's like personality-wise, she's massively unattractive. She's not a nice person. I
was listening to this podcast about, I've been listening to all the Night Shift podcasts, and people just did not get it that, why wasn't she fat? Why didn't they get a fat actress? And it's like, no, she's neurotic. She's got this compulsion. She's got body dysmorphia. That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the other scenes that really made me chuckle as well was the Chuck on the subway with the saxophone player.
Yeah.
And gives him the change, and then it's like it's not enough, so he writes him a check.
That was Ron Howard was the saxophone player.
Oh yeah, I did read that somewhere. That's
All right, to set that up, so Chuck has met Belinda in the lift. She's been beaten up by her pimp. She's telling him that, it's hell on the streets because their pimp's died, so they've got no protection. The punters are just beating up the prostitutes and taking the money back. And although the pimps are scum and will, try and trick them into taking heroin and stuff, at least they offer protection. So he's explaining this sad situation to Bill on the subway. And Bill says, well, why don't we do it? Why don't we look after them? And he has the greatest of his great ideas, and they become love brokers.
Love brokers, yeah.
So she was just lying there in the elevator. She's all beat up. See, that's why I have pimps. You know, that's what she said. She knows this whole bunch of girlfriends that need pimps. I really hope they find someone trustworthy. Are you crazy? Those guys are killers. They're animals. They dress nice, though.
It is. It is a bit of a stretch, I suppose, but you've set up that character of Bill nicely enough that it's believable, and you set that character of Chuck that he's desperate to.
Yeah, because Bill is halfway there. I mean, he's driving kids to their proms and things like that. He's, a shady limo driver, abusing the facilities of the morgue. Yeah,
exactly. Do you think the film would have worked if it wasn't sort of set in a morgue? I think there is a little bit of a, from my perspective, watching it first time, it was maybe a little bit of an odd
juxtaposition.
Yes, definitely, yeah.
Well, this is the kernel of the idea for the film was Brian Grazer read a piece in the New York Daily Times, I think, or the New York Daily News, saying that two morgue attendants had been busted running a sex ring out of the morgue.
Oh, right, okay.
So, and Ron Howard was looking for a dark, gritty project to distance himself from his Richie Cunningham Happy Days mode, and so there's a kernel of truth in there somewhere.
I guess it's not that unbelievable then. Wow. Okay.
Under heaven and earth.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, it's a sanitised morgue. You don't see any corpses. You don't see any viscera.
Yeah. I think you get the sort of covered up body of the pimp at the start, don't you? And that's
it.
That's about it. Yeah.
One stage, Chuck is wearing these kind of strange fishing shoes, like these wading rubber boots. I was thinking, is that because he's stamping through human offal at all times? But that's it. Nothing more. Oh, and at the frat party, they climb in the drawers for kinky fun. But that's about it.
And there's obviously this sort of section where we get introduced to, is it Charlotte's mum and dad?
Yeah.
And obviously the point where Belinda's now introduced to Chuck, and I believe she gets arrested. Is it hitting a client? Is that right?
She bit him on the bum.
Bit him on the bum, that's it. Yeah.
Massive gory wounds. Feast your eyes on this, he says to the court.
And then one of the most bizarre choices ever, Chuck takes his prospective in-laws to the court to bail her out.
Yeah. I mean, the dad says...
Which is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, the dad says it's because, we've got the car, we've rented the car, so we might as well use it. Chuck, man, you should have lied. You should have said it was Bill that was in court, not Belinda.
What about the character of Belinda, Shelley Long? How do you rate her performance? Because my experience of Shelley Long would probably begin and end at Cheers. I can't really think of anything else.
Yeah, she hasn't done
Brady Bunch movie, maybe.
Yeah,
that's something I've seen.
A couple of comedies at the time. The Money Pit, I think. I love her. I always have. Just very intelligent, very sweet. Just a razor sharp mind in there, and she's perfect for the tone of the film. Just a sweet, sentimental character, but savvy. She doesn't take any shit. She doesn't take people. Even Chuck, when he says, why do you do this? You're very bright. She just gets him out of the house because she's not going to hear it from anyone. This is what she does, and she's not ashamed of it. And it's the same in the court sequence as well.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. It's not like she's playing it as somebody who's ashamed of what she does or anything like that. She's very commanding. She's like you say, she's savvy. She's probably the most savvy character in this film.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
And I think again, my experience of Shelley Long, she's is Cheers, where she's she's that little bit sort of sassy, I suppose, but
doesn't take any shit from Ted Danson.
Yeah, but it's you don't necessarily, or I didn't, I suppose. Wouldn't see her as a sex symbol or anything like that. But then I suppose it's a different time, I suppose.
She looks good in that kitchen.
Yeah, she does.
That was an important scene in my youth. Did the parents remind you of? Did you ever watch Blackadder 2?
Yes.
The
Lord and Lady Whiteadder.
The Puritan parents that came to visit on Comedy Press Night. It was just like that. Yeah.
What he is trying to tell you is that you appear to be wearing a pair of devil's dumplings.
Oh my God, my earmuffs have fallen down.
I mean, for me, on a first-time viewing, and I think this is a film I'll revisit because, like I said, I did enjoy it. But I would say I think it does suffer, like a lot of comedies with a heart do, in the sort of final act. I think it struggles to keep the comedy going a little bit. What do you think? Do you think that sort of final act? How do you think that final act works?
I categorically reject all criticism of this film because I love it. I love it. So.
Fair enough.
But, right, so... Okay, so what, we're talking about the Paradise Found brothel, the tropical themed spa. Is that where you lost it?
I don't know. I guess it's the whole sort of him falling for her and her falling for him and them eventually sort of getting together. I think and it's not a criticism I would just level at this.
Okay, well then let's go back a bit. So they have the Christmas party. Mm-hmm. Chuck has already expressed his worries to Bill. Being involved in this horrible trade.
Bill, let me try to explain this to you. As we sit here and idly chat, there are women, female human beings, rolling around in strange beds with strange men, and we are making money from that.
Is this a great country or what?
So then they have a party. The prostitutes throw a big party for them because they've done so well out of the deal. And then the three of them, Chuck, Bill and Belinda, sat around a Christmas tree in the middle of the night, and Bill starts to break down a bit and talks about how his dad abused him and his mother.
I'm serious. I know. Then when I was 13, he left. He's out of there. He's gone. History, right? Told me and my mom we were too ugly to look at. In my case, he was wrong.
Oh, Bill.
No, I mean my mom. Well, my mom used to be real pretty. He lives a lunatic and does things to you.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck says, "Do you want to see what I've done with my money?" And he takes them to a cemetery and shows them the tombstone that he's bought for his father. And that's another running thing through the film, that his mother has belittled his father his whole life. And Belinda is really taken with that. She thinks, that's a sweet gesture on his part, and it's obvious that Chuck fancies her, has been fancying her all the way through the film.
Yeah.
And so I thought that built up really well.
Yeah, okay. That's fair enough. I think it's that, it starts to lose the laughs a little bit, and maybe it's just not my...
Life's not all ha-ha, Peter, you gotta have the soul, the love as well.
I know, but I think it does that well. It does the heart really well. That playing up those sort of heartfelt moments, and I don't know. Maybe it's I didn't expect it to quite go there based on the rest of the film.
There's a detail I've just got to mention.
Yeah,
it's something I picked up from one of the podcasts, and it just blew me away. So you notice how they make love in the bath, and before that, there's like when Belinda and Chuck make love, and there's a panning shot across her apartment, and you see her bed is untouched, and that they're in the bath together.
Yeah,
and that's because they don't want to do it in the bed because that's her place of business.
Yes,
isn't that lovely little detail that, it's thrown away.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's it. Well, that always makes for a good film, an interesting film when you can rewatch. And I'm sure you've probably seen this film.
Well, I've seen it a fuck of a lot now. Last week, too many times. Okay, so what about the scene in the brothel? Do you feel that Chuck and Bill break up too many times, like they have? Because they have a big row before that in solicitor's office where Chuck's in his tennis whites and Bill is in his tennis whites and Chuck just wants to have his job. But Bill says, look, we've got these guys now where we want them and we can screw them for more money and Chuck's like, no, just let me have my job, let me have my old life back.
Yeah, no, I didn't think so. I thought that made sense because you've got this arc with Chuck. It's not easy for him to let go of, how he is and how he's, just sort of treated or emasculated by people and things like that. And it's not easy for him to let go and become more like Bill. So I think you have to have those couple of moments where he's clinging on to that, or he's trying to, not give in to being a bit more carefree and booting his old life away. I think you've got to have that to get to the conclusion that you get, where he's finally like, fuck it, and I'm going to do what I want.
It's just that one sandwich guy too many, and just pushes him over the edge, and then that's it. Fuck it.
Yeah. Well, I can relate to that. You get, you want a particular sandwich, and it's not the right fucking sandwich. And that can make or break your day or your life, even.
Get back there and clean my door.
Yeah. Well, that's it, and it's one of those sort of conclusions that you all like to think that you could do at the end of the day as well, and just say, fucking no.
Yeah, I love all the different ways that the city grinds Chuck down. He'll just be walking down through the hotel corridor, and somebody will shove him out of the way.
And the dog.
Yeah, the black dog of depression. And that's a vicious dog. I mean, he just gets away in the nick of time.
Oh, fucking hell, yeah. You don't see many vicious dogs in films anymore. I don't know if that's just an exclusively sort of 80s, 90s thing. People love the dogs too much. They don't want to see them as vicious killers anymore.
I've just been watching Nope on Now TV, and I know why. You seen that? Jordan Peele's Nope?
Nope, oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, animals in films, it's a vexed subject.
Oh, fantastic film. I love that film.
Yeah, it's growing on me, second time. Anyway, Night Shift.
Yeah. Okay, so anything else you'd like to sort of throw in for?
There's so much, but nothing occurs to me right now. Yeah, just a good depiction of sex work and a beautiful friendship comedy. I mean, I love the possibilities that the ending gives you, where it's the three of them on the street and they're just heading off. What are they going to do? It could be the start of a whole sitcom. I think they could set up a talent agency. All three of those people are intrinsic to the business. Bill is the guy on the street going out, making things happen. Chuck looks after the money and can accumulate and double it all. And Belinda also has an important role because she finds the talent. So I think set up a talent agency.
Yeah. I think there's quite a prophetic line where where he says about I can't get over that you didn't quit. She says, right, I didn't quit. Did you quit? And then he says, I'm not a whore. And she says, no, you're a pimp. And I thought that was quite a clever little exchange there as well.
Yeah. We have to shout out Lowell Gans and Babalu Mendez, the two writers, formerly of Happy Days.
Oh, right, really? Wow.
And then just so many great comedies since then. Splash, City Slickers, lots of stuff. Really, just a beautiful script.
I actually saw Splash first time in a long time. It was on one of the ITV channels, 2 or 3. I can't remember which one it was the other day. I've not seen that in a long time.
What did you make of it?
Not quite as good as I remember, but it was fun.
It's funny,
it was definitely fun.
I mean, there's lots of good lines and little bits in it. John Candy is on great form.
Yeah, well, he was always on great form, wasn't he? Really.
Yeah, true.
I think he's a massive shame. I mean, we had one of the early sort of intermission questions that Liam put to me was, who would you bring back for another performance or one more performance? Bring back from the dead. And I think I said Heath Ledger at the time because I'd like to have seen more of his Joker. But then sort of in hindsight and retrospect, I think John Candy, definitely.
Yeah, just a life force, so much
going
on there.
Yeah. Okay, so if you've nothing else to add there, then we'll take a short break. Okay, so welcome to the intermission. This is the part of the episode where I put a question to my guest, to a random question, or fairly random question, a question they'd know nothing about, and get their genuine first answer. So, Tarquin, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, so who would you like to see as the next James Bond?
Okay.
Well, first of all, are you a Bond fan?
Yeah, I've watched all the films. I mean, I do feel like the Bourne Ultimatum exposition has kind of eaten its lunch a little bit. You know, that's like slightly more exciting. But yeah, I've enjoyed all the films. I really like the Daniel Craig era. I thought that brought it back to basics. It had kind of fallen off after Roger Moore.
Okay.
Let's see. I think his name is Dipsy Susie. Or Dipsy Susie. He was in Gangs of London.
Oh, right, okay, I've not seen that.
Yeah, because people keep saying Idris Elba, and I imagine big, fat, tall Idris Elba crashing around a rooftop, not being able to run very fast. I mean, alright, he could beat the crap out of people, but I think this guy, Soapy Dirisu.
Oh, right, okay.
That can't be the right pronunciation. Soap Dirisu? Him. He's cool. He's the man. You know, he'd be perfect.
Okay, cool. That's not somebody I'm familiar with. I think Gangs of London's one of those things that people keep telling me about and I've not actually watched.
If you see the first episode, it's like this extended punch-up in a pub, and it's just the most exciting action sequence I've seen for, you know, a long, long time. So if you watch that, I think you'll see what I mean. Did you have someone in mind? Quizmaster. Do
you know what? I'd like to see somebody like Cillian Murphy.
Okay.
Just because I think he could... You know, I mean, all the favourites at the moment, I believe, are Henry Cavill, who I think, you know, could probably pull it off.
He's a plank.
But, yeah, he'd be very much, you know, he'd be very...
Emoting behind the eyes.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Tom Hardy's the other one that sort of gets thrown around.
Yeah.
And...
Well, he's more of a thug, you know, I mean, I don't see him as smooth.
No,
James Bond is a bit posh, you know.
Yeah. But I think Cillian Murphy could pull that off. I think he's got that sort of. I think he could bring that iciness to the role. You know, that's there in the books. You know, I wasn't a big fan of Daniel Craig. Not necessarily Daniel Craig as James Bond, but I found all of his films a bit samey.
Okay.
And I was always a big Bond fan. I had them all on VHS when they were. My family bought me on them all for when they were 2 for 1 at Christmas time every year. So I amassed the full collection over a number of Christmases, basically.
It's got to be a reinforced bookshelf.
It was. I was very sad when VHS went out and I had to bin that, because it was one of those collections that had the, you know, they all formed one picture when you lined them up along the wall, you know, on your bookshelf. So I was very sad when I had to get rid of them. But there we go. But yeah, I think Cillian Murphy would be my choice.
Okay, a good choice. Yeah, always an intelligent actor.
Okay, so we move on to my choice, which is Willow from 1988.
From the creator of Star Wars, from the director of Cocoon, a world is awakening.
Why, with the strength of my great army, can you not find one little child?
It's a dangerous world. That's why we need your help.
Your journey has just begun.
Willow. Heroes come in all sizes. But adventure doesn't come any bigger than this.
Find the child. Find the child.
We are not afraid of you. After them!
You're gonna get us killed.
I trust them completely. great adventure.
You are great.
Willow. Coming in May.
So, obviously directed by Ron Howard, starring Warwick Davis, Val Kilmer, Joanne Whalley, Jean Marsh and Patricia Hayes. Willow is the story of a young farmer who is chosen to undertake a perilous journey in order to protect a special baby from an evil queen. So first of all, Tarquin, had you seen this film before?
No, I always avoided it.
Avoided?
Yep. Because it got really bad reviews at the time. People were saying, oh, what is George Lucas trying to do? And I kind of agree with those reviews.
Sacrilegious. So, my first experience with Willow, we had a local sort of video shop just around the corner from where we live with our father, and he would offer a lot of suggestions of, should we get this, should we get that, and me and my sister would more often than not say, no, we want to watch a particular film that was out or whatever, and he would always sort of push for something a bit different, and this was one of those films. And he always recounts that story to me whenever we talk about Willow, because he really enjoys Willow as well. So it's one of those films that has a sort of special place in my heart as well, because it's a passion I share with my father. I later got it on VHS. It was part of the Cinema Club range of VHSs, which were these almost sort of bargain basket VHSs that you found in a lot of supermarkets. Something like $3.99. So once I got it on VHS, I just watched it. The film was first conceived by George Lucas in the early 70s, originally entitled Munchkins. Thankfully, he changed his mind on that. He liked the concept of having a little person in the lead role, and really wanted to sort of highlight the little man against the big evil, quite sort of literally here. And he felt at the time that the visual effects had not developed enough to recreate his vision, so he put the idea on the shelf. And then obviously he made Star Wars, changed history, and created probably the most well-known special effects company in the world, Industrial Light and Magic, where a sort of fledgling Ron Howard was doing post-production on Cocoon, which was one of his his reasonably early films. I think 86.
Yeah, I mean, that was a massive gunshot heard across the world. Everyone loved that film.
Yeah. And it's not one I massively rate. It's a long time since I've seen it. I'm
afraid I just thought, oh, old people. I'm not going to watch it. But, everyone seems to love it.
And Steve Guttenberg.
And Steve Guttenberg. Steve compounded it.
But whilst he was there doing post-production on Cocoon, he met up with George Lucas. Obviously, they'd made American Graffiti together. They had the relationship, but he'd expressed an interest in making a fantasy film, basically. So this sort of reinvigorated Lucas into pushing this story of Willow. And the film was offered to a number of different studios, all passed due to the fantasy films performing poorly, or poorer than expected at the box office, especially during the 80s. Films like Krull, Dragon Slayer, Legend, all underperformed compared to the expectations of the studio. But it was finally picked up by MGM, at the time being run by Alan Ladd Jr., the
producers of Night Shift, the Alan Ladd company.
Yes, yeah. Obviously, he was one of the people who pushed for Star Wars to be made as well when he was at Fox.
That turned out okay.
Exactly. So he got that relationship with George Lucas. It was filmed at Elstree Studios in the UK, as well as filming locations taking place in both Wales and New Zealand. And I would say you've got, I'm going to say, unbelievable performance by Warwick Davis. Not in the sense that it's a fantastic performance by Warwick Davis, because I think Warwick Davis is not necessarily a fantastic actor, but considering the fact that he was 17 years old at the time of making this film, and he's got to portray, a father, a family man, got to attempt an American accent.
Dad, we found something in the river.
I can't run off and play with you now. Ran and I've got work to do.
You got
think he does a pretty good job. You know, his only acting experience prior to this was Wicket. In Return of the Jedi, you know, fully costumed performance. I think he was only 11, 12, something like that at the time of that.
Yeah, he does okay. He always seems sincere, you know, whatever he does. You know, it's not fantastic, but you know.
I mean, you know, he's got to play this family man. He's got to convincingly portray a father. Obviously, not being a father at the time, you know, and he's got this. His family's content; they're all happy, but he isn't. You know, he's a little bit. You know, he wants to do better. He thinks he can be this powerful sorcerer. He does these sort of magic shows. You know, regular sort of magic tricks. You know, his arc through the whole story, I think, is just really good. I think it's really nice. He doesn't really sort of ham it up or anything like that. The character of Willow, you know, he's afraid. He's not, you know, he's not an out and out hero. He's
a whiny little piece of shit. All the way through the film, whatever he's got to do, he doesn't want to do it. You know, he doesn't want to rescue the little baby, let it drown. You know, and he doesn't want to take it to find the Daikini, the big people. You know.
Willow, do you think we should take her to the village council?
No, they'll think it's a bad omen. There'll be a flood or a drought, and everyone will blame me for it. Willow Upgood brought around that Daikini, didn't he? That's right, he's that lousy farmer too. Let's get him!
Willow, calm down.
Calm down, Kaya. Tomorrow's my big day.
Screw that.
He doesn't, but then when he knows,
he's always got excuses.
But then he does it when he knows it's right, and he's got to do it.
Yeah. I mean, his fundamentals are decent, you know.
Yeah, and I think
if he has to do something, he'll do the right thing in the end.
You get the same with.
But the whinging, like even when they're when they're escaping from the tavern. And you know what's his name, Mad Mortigan.
Yeah.
Saves his life, puts him in a little trolley and takes him away. Even there, he's complaining. You know, let's stop. We're going too fast.
I think that's it's that juxtaposition of the character. I suppose is that he wants more. He wants his life to be more exciting, and he thinks he can be this powerful sorcerer. But at the same time, he
doesn't want to.
He doesn't. You know, he's sort of scared, and he's he doesn't want to push himself into those situations. But onto the character of Mad Martigan, you know, Val Kilmer, the 1980s when Kilmer still had charisma, you know, before he lost it in the mid-90s. You know, lovable rogue, scumbag.
Han Solo.
Yeah, Han Solo. Yeah, I mean, this is a point a little bit later down in my notes, but you know, this film does very much follow the Star Wars template, which I'll go into a little bit later once we get through some of the characters. Mm-hmm. You know, he's got no problem shielding himself with the baby and dragging up to escape this rather aggressive husband lug.
You're beautiful.
And you're very strong.
Thank you.
You're no woman.
Now, honey.
Not a woman!
Easy.
Gentlemen, not a woman! Meet Lug.
Yeah, no, he's good fun. I did like him in the film.
Well, you don't often see, you think of films like, I mean, post Tombstone, you know, he's got obviously a lot of charisma as Doc Holliday.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, brilliant film. He's easily his best performance. You know, after that, you know, it was like all the air got sucked out of his lungs, really. You know, things like The Saint and Batman Forever.
That's probably the last time I saw
Island of Dr. Moreau, even Ghost in the Darkness. You just know, it's almost like he just sort of gave up on becoming a great actor. Even he's a great film, and he's not bad in that, but he's not charismatic. He's very, very wooden. But you know, the same as I would say for Willow. You know, the character of Mad Mardigan steps up when he needs to. You know, he knows once he realises that, you know, that Elora's in danger, and you know, this story that Willow's spinning to him about her being, you know, the saviour of the world or whatever. He steps up. And apparently Val Kilmer ad-libbed most of his lines as well, which is quite interesting. I think, he has some. I think there's, one of my favourite lines of his is where they're trapped in the cage on the sort of mountainside in the snow, and I think it's the first time Willow is trying to turn Finn Rizal back into a true human form, and he's just sat there. Mad Mardigan's like, oh, this is stupid, this is never going to work, why are you doing this, anything else? And he's going through the spell, and then Rizal says,
What are you going to look like if this works?
Don't interrupt.
Sorry.
Hear the Green and Band, Clyde of Lunanoct.
I am a young, beautiful woman.
Concentrate,
Willow.
She played him.
Yeah. And then you've got Jean Marsh, who plays Queen Bavmorda. Jean Marsh is just one of those characters that just pulls off evil just impeccably, I suppose. I think for me as a young child, she just terrified me. She's got that sort of, icy stare.
Kale, have you found the child?
The search goes on, my queen.
Why, with my powers, with the strength of my great army, can you not find one little child?
We look even now. It won't be long.
Find the child! Find the child! Time is running out.
Yeah, no, she's intense. She's a good evil witch.
Yeah, and there's this sort of evil biblical plan, killing children, getting pregnant mothers, even a costume. It's just weird sort of mummified undergarments that you see sort of later on in the film. And you believe that everybody is terrified of her. It's a very convincing performance. Then you've got Joanne Whalley, who would go on to marry Val Kilmer. They met on this film. As Saoirse, who's Queen Bavmorda's daughter, and probably I would say the worst sort of realised character in this film.
Why would you say that?
Because I don't think she pulls off the sinister in the early part of the film, and I think her arc is a little bit unbelievable because she's the first part of the film she's portrayed as this, relatively, she doesn't doubt her mother. She's doing what her mother tells her. She's all about that sort of life of doing what her mother wants and doesn't question it at all.
Yeah, I think there's a moment as she's about to butcher another girl child that you see a flicker of doubt on her face. Like, maybe this is wrong, but otherwise she's totally down for the cause.
Yeah, and I think I think her character would have been better had they made that a little bit more obvious throughout the film, or played into that a little bit more. Because
otherwise her great spiritual awakening is Mad Mordigan's
profession of love. Yeah,
MDMA, questionable sexual assault.
Yes.
Tent,
exactly. And that's all it takes. Other than
Yeah, you are my son.
Yeah, exactly. If it was that easy, Jesus. I don't think she was quite the strong sort of female character she could have been. I think she could have been a lot more.
Crap at fighting. All the fighting scenes are like Saturday Night Fever, kicking in.
But she's got such a badass sword as well, with this sort of serrated edge, and it looks awesome.
It's a shame. She was good in Scandal. She was good in The Singing Detective.
And then you've got Kevin Pollak, Rick Overton, who play Raoul and Frangine, who are these sort of brownies, these sort of miniature pixie type creatures.
Yeah, they're good fun. I like them. Yep.
Go get me some eggs or something.
We are not afraid of you.
Now!
The effects for sort of late 80s, it's pretty seamless in places. It's really well done. And they're not left out of the action. They're part of this sort of cart chase. And towards the end, they're there. They're not just, not just the comic relief. They're important. It's a little bit of there were rumours that, or there was always a story that was sort of thrown around that Lucas tried to get the rights to make Lord of the Rings, and this was to be about the little people. The short actors were a replacement for hobbits as such, but
I was thinking Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely
that scene where the Lilliputians have Gulliver pinned down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's directly referenced.
But these, these sort of go to they're part of this Star Wars formula. They're the C-3PO and R2-D2 of this film. You've got Patricia Hayes, who plays Finn Rizal. I don't think she was particularly well known to American audiences. I think she's very much a British actor. Obviously, A Fish Called Wanda is probably her biggest role outside of the UK, I would imagine. But she's just
the poor dog lady.
Yeah, but she's just a lovable old lady. Patricia Hayes.
Didn't really want to see her naked.
No, of course not. No, but she has this sort of balance of impatience and sass at the same time. She's reasonably sort of formidable. Not as powerful as Bav Morda, but she knows her stuff, and once she's back to her true form, she's there. But again, she's the sort of Obi-Wan of this film. She's the the teacher teaching Willow, who's the Luke of the story. And then what I really liked in terms of the casting was Pat Roach.
Yeah, bomber.
I love Pat Roach. I mean, feature film wise, this is probably his most vocal role. He's always sort of this sort of henchman, or famously he was in all of the original Indiana Jones trilogy, and he's pretty badass as a henchman here.
Yeah, I mean you wouldn't want him against you, would you?
No, I mean he's got this
skeletal mask stamping through the village.
He's got this massive brow as well, which is obviously some kind of makeup effect.
Yeah, he looks like a kind of BBC paste up of early man.
Yeah,
a documentary, Neolithic fibers.
This sort of skull helmet mask as well. Again, to me as 10-year-old Peter watching this, it's like, wow, he's got a skull for a mask.
But you say dialogue. I mean, all he says is "grag." He just walks into a room, "grag," and smashes it up.
Yeah. Well, he's got a few lines. There's a few lines earlier.
Good henchman, and all the costume design you have to reference. Jean Mobius Girard, the famous French comic artist who did the production design for the film, and all the sets and things have just got this really nice touch to them.
Yeah, really.
And the costumes, kind of Japanese, early medieval look.
Yeah. I mean, you've got a bit of... It definitely, in Saoirse's costume, it's very sort of samurai sort of look to her. And it actually is... Pat Roach's character, General Kale, was named after Pauline Kael, who famous American critic.
Yeah. And, the two-headed beastie.
Yes.
My favourite character was... Ebert Skisk or something like
that. The Ebersisk, after Ebert and Siskel and Ebert. Yeah. And it also had this film apparently had the largest casting call for short actors, for little people ever, up to 240 short actors being cast, including some well-known faces. Billy Barty obviously has a reasonably prominent role as the High Aldwin. Kenny Baker, Jack Purvis, Malcolm Dixon, and Tony Cox as well in an early role.
Yeah, from The Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on, what is it? The James Franco one, Oz the Great and Powerful.
Oz Great and Powerful. Yeah, he was the chauffeur, the limo driver in Me, Myself, and Irene as well.
But you said you'd eat whale blubber.
She'll be eating blubber, all right, just as soon as I free will it.
And Bad Santa.
And Bad Santa, yeah.
Yeah, he's cool, and a couple of faces from Time Bandits.
Yeah, but like you touched on there as well, the set design. There's some really good set pieces. The Nelwyn Village looks really, really good, really lived in, really realistic. Tira's Lean, this sort of this grand castle where everyone's been turned to stone, again looks really good, as well as Nockmaar, which is Bav Morda's sort of home base.
Yeah. Formidable and draped in the bodies of foes.
It's very bleak film in a lot of places. Probably a good time to mention James Horner as well. James Horner's always a good safe pair of hands, I think, really, when it comes to score, especially something sort of epic and fantasy based. I've talked about him before on the podcast with Titanic, Braveheart. He's done loads of things. I think he pictures it right. It's got those sort of themes for different characters, different paces in the film.
All right, here I must politely demur, because the soundtrack, it didn't really work for me. It's like bombastic themes kind of shoved together awkwardly. Sorry, no, it didn't really work for me. The
No?
soundtrack.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I mean, to talk about some of the key scenes, I think some of the big set pieces. We've mentioned the sort of cart chase. I think, again, just touch on that sort of briefly. I think that works really well. Aside from,
yeah, I mean the stuff with the brownies in that is top notch.
Yeah,
where they're hanging onto the cartwheel.
Yeah.
Also, really like the toboggan race. That's probably my favourite moment. Going down the icy, snowy slopes.
Well, that's it. I think it has that sort of light-heartedness to this film as well, which works really well. It doesn't go too far. When you look at something like the series, which I was going to mention towards the end, the recent Disney Plus series, which is okay, but it's not Willow. It's something completely different. It's trying to be a Marvel series or a Marvel film.
I last did an episode and a half. Nice production values, good scary moment with the attack in the first episode. And everyone looks very beautiful. But Jesus Christ, the dialogue, I just can't stand that sarcastic Hollyoaks type dialogue of teenagers just mouthing off at each other all the time.
Yeah, they got it so wrong. And Warwick Davis seems to have lost the ability to act the whole series as well, which is massively distracting.
Proximity to Ricky Gervais.
And then, as you sort of touched on this fight at Tira's Lean, this is the place they're meant to go to save the baby. This is their last hope, and it's just desolate. Everybody turned to stone.
Listen to you, Peck. Everything will be all right once we get to Tira's Lean. The only army around here is the one that's about to ride across this valley and wipe us out.
But Cheryl Indria said we'd be safe here.
Safe? Look at these people. This place is cursed, Peck. It's falling apart. Open your eyes. And trolls.
But, Mad Martigan kicks into AT mode and sets up various different traps for the oncoming soldiers. Dresses for the occasion, finds some, A-grade slacks to wear. You've got the introduction of the troll.
Samurai costume highlighted inside the armory.
Yeah. You've got it's like when you find a new costume in a computer game, and it's all sort of highlighted. It's new armour. You've got the trolls that are introduced here as well, which is sort of
love for trolls. Yeah, when they're all crawling up underneath the staircase, defying gravity on the bridge. That's wicked. And
I just like how they're built up early in the film of troll. Willow's afraid of trolls. They'll rip your face off and all that sort of thing. And I think they mentioned another point before then, but then it's like, stepping in troll shit. There's trolls here. And they're not, they're obviously not introduced immediately, not until, the shit starts to hit the fan. But yeah.
Yeah, don't mess with trolls. I mean, you just get them wet and then they turn into like this 60-foot double-headed chicken creature.
Yeah. So yeah, the Ebosisk, which I think is superbly realised creature. Really,
that was the word I was going to use.
Yeah, it's not classic to anything. It is just, it makes sense to. Willow's done this spell that's just turned this troll into something fucking grim and looks like a brain.
Nice gory sequence where it turns inside out.
Yeah,
it's like a stomach haggis type thing, and then these polyps burst out. And
it's
cool.
It's almost like you could imagine it being a variation of the Thing in the Thing kind of thing. That's too many things in one sentence. But it just looks
angry DNA.
Yeah, definitely. And you get this brilliant bit where Mad Martigan's twizzling his sword round, showing off his prowess with the sword, and everybody's backing away, and he thinks it's him, and then spots this fucking epic creature behind him, and runs out with the people he's meant to be fighting before running back again. But I think there's some really good special effects in that.
I've got one note. So, what kills that creature? Because as far as I can tell, they're fighting it, and then its head blows up. But I didn't see what blew its head up.
Mad Martigan jumps on its head, shoves the sword through the top of its head that comes out through its mouth. I think the way I see it is that the sword going through the top of its head through its bottom of its mouth keeps its mouth closed, so that the build-up of this gas in its mouth that causes the flame just explodes, basically.
Thank God you were here. All right, I would have gone to my grave not knowing.
That's always my sort of reading of that scene.
Somebody explained what happened to the Queen as well, which was useful, because I didn't get that either. All right, so right at the end, what kills the Queen?
So, again, my interpretation is that she's performing the ritual
Spoilers.
to send the baby to the ninth dimension, I think it is, or something like that.
Not the ninth dimension.
Well, yeah, it's the
it's
the worst. It's a lot worse than the 8th, and not as bad as the 10th, I don't think, but we'll see. But yeah, so she's so far through the ritual, and my interpretation is that that's what then takes her, because she's under the altar with the lightning coming down, and that's what takes her away to the 9th dimension, 10th dimension, or whatever it is.
Okay, I thought she just slipped on something and fell in the cauldron and then got zapped by lightning, but that makes more sense what you just said.
There's Elora Dan and the baby is then, whisked away by Kale. Genuine sort of concern here, and everybody's, suitably distraught, and Sorcerer is now fully good guy after
Team good, yeah.
After getting a kiss from Mad Mardigan. And then you get this standoff at Nockmaar, and some really, really gnarly...
Love her. I don't love her. She kicked me in the face.
Yeah.
We have to mention that Elora Danan is the best actor in the film. That little baby.
Yeah, she's pretty damn good.
Those expressions she pulls are just amazing. Like, she's always on point.
It must have taken them ages to get the right ones, really. But yeah, she's...
I think she was doing lots of smoking, like, between scenes, getting in the mood, and then bang!
Drinking lots of whiskey, yeah. And you get these really gnarly effects at Nockmaar when Bavmorda turns the entire army.
You dare to challenge me? You're not warriors. You're pigs.
Yeah, that's good. That would have fucked me up when I was a kid, just that whole nightmarish sequence.
Yeah, well, this film was and is a PG, it's typical 80s, it's like Jaws.
So what does that mean? Nobody under 12, or 12 only with a parent?
Parental guidance.
Yeah.
Anybody can see it with a parent, basically.
Okay.
But
a few nightmares there, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, some of the notes from on set was that these pigs running around just constantly trying to have sex with each other, so they had to throw loads and loads of water at various points during filming of this, just to stop them from doing so. But this leads into a first for cinema, really, as well. It's another reason. It's a reason that this is quite an important film. It was the first time CGI morphing effect was used on film. I mean, in 2023 it does look a bit clunky in places, but it's pretty good. Dennis Murren, who was a famous special effects guy on Star Wars, along with Douglas Smythe, David Allen, with 6 months to create the morphing program, and it would be a breakthrough in CGI. We see at this point Rizal transform from a goat into an ostrich, to a peacock, to a tortoise, to a tiger, to a body double, and then finally Patricia Hayes.
So they do a kind of animation keyframe thing where they build models of like the in-between stages, and then morph in between those. So something halfway between an eagle and a possum. And so they use that for the morphing thing. I mean, I wasn't blown away, but obviously we're in a very sophisticated age.
Yeah, I think
I do remember a fuss being made of the morphing process back in the day, like on Tomorrow's World or something.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think there's this, and I think probably a year earlier, I think was it the Young Sherlock Holmes with the first ever fully CGI character with the stained glass knight, which is a film I would definitely love to talk about at some point on the podcast. It's another one of those films that just blew me away when I was a kid. But then this leads into the end battle, so it's a well edited piece. I think this, you're moving between 2 to 3 sort of different strands of the story. The overall battle, Willow, Bavmorda, and Finn Rizal, and then sort of Mad Mardigan and Kale, which is a pretty brutal fight. Again for a PG. There's a lot of sort of throat slitting and a lot of sort of barbarity, really. And then you get Rizal and Bavmorda, which is, you know...
Not the human beatbox from The Roots, I should say, Rizal.
No. But yeah, you know, they're sort of battle. Yeah, fucking. There's one point where Rizal's spinning Bavmorda around the room, and Bavmorda's throwing rocks at Rizal. It's
that was cool.
It's pretty bawdy, pretty gnarly fight scene. But you know, Bavmorda's just simply too powerful for everyone. Nobody can match her in terms of magic. And it comes down to Willow, you know, our hero of the piece. He's got to use his wits, and you know, it circles back to the start of the film. He uses what's inside him. You know, the High Aldwin tells him, you know, it's not any particular finger that's going to, you know, bring out your ability with magic and becoming a sorcerer. It's what's inside you, and you know, uses his disappearing pig trick. Which I just think it's so simple. It's Willow, you know. It's his character. He uses what he knows.
Mm-hmm. Not the stone acorn.
No, that does him no good in this film whatsoever. But leads you to sort of think, well, the High Aldwin's just shit, really. He knows very little, and he's not very powerful at all.
It's a dwarf village. You can get away with murder in those places.
Yeah, well, that's true. But yeah, nice, neat little conclusion to the film. The baby's saved. He's got new parents in, Mad Mardigan and Sorsha. Tira's lean. Everybody's unstoned, uniced, stoned, whatever. And the village bully gets shit on the head by birds. What more can you want?
A script, you know, I mean, I think that's the big problem all the way through it. You can't argue with Ron Howard's capable direction. You know, he does all the action sequences great. Everything looks wonderful. The actors are doing their jobs. But I do feel the script is somewhat poor. Like, what's the Queen's line? Bavmorda's line? Traitor child, I must despise you now. You know, it's very hammy, very manga.
Yeah, I can see your point. I think there's...
I mean, you've got this wonderful rose-tinted memory of the film, but for me, coming at it as an elder, I wasn't blown away, I've got to say.
Okay. I mean, I would say in later years, yes, I can see where you're coming from, but I just think it's just a very neat film. I think yes, there's certain lines you can point at that are probably very clunky and very wooden in some respects as well, and I think you probably...
I think there's a problem with George Lucas as a whole. You
know. Yeah, I think, you know, he is... Yeah, and George Lucas had a lot of involvement in this film. I think he was very much on the shoulder of Ron Howard.
Yeah, and the passion project that he'd fostered since the 1970s that he'd had in his back pocket ready to go. You know? Yeah, and I think, you know, it goes to show in his later film, you know, there's a reason George Lucas didn't make anything past the Star Wars prequels, you know, and that's probably it. You know, I think you can probably eye the same problems with the Star Wars prequels. Yeah, the script, wooden dialogue. You know?
It's the script and it's the dialogue. Yeah. You know, I wouldn't totally agree that. I don't think there are bits definitely that are a bit wooden, but I wouldn't say it's terrible.
Fun.
But I can see where you're coming from.
I was going to take like the dual premise very seriously and just totally slate the film, but you know, I had a laugh with it. It was okay. I won. I mean, I obviously won. I came to the duel with a fine rifle, and you came with a wet fish. But you know.
But then I think
it's all right.
I think the thing is as well, if we are being completely honest with each other, neither of these films are probably Ron Howard's quote unquote best film.
Well, that's only if you take other people's opinions.
When you think about maybe sort of direction and editing and script and everything else,
what would he say is his best film? I mean, probably Apollo 13, Backdraft. I think one of those. Maybe A Beautiful Mind because he won the Oscars.
Yeah, I would say, you know, something like that. Maybe a Frost Nixon or, you know, which was a film I really enjoyed. I didn't expect to enjoy Frost Nixon, but I really enjoyed it. But then I think that's not necessarily down to direction. I think that's down to Frank Langella and Michael Sheen. I think, you know, their performances are really good in that.
That's one of those worthy films that I always, tell myself I have to watch, but have not watched. Would you recommend it?
I would. I mean, it's not a film I would go back to per se. It's not one I've watched more than once. But then I wouldn't say that for a lot of Ron Howard's. Angels and Demons I really enjoyed. I thought the Da Vinci Code was it was.
I just watched it this week. It's a good kind of espionage thriller. I
Yeah.
like the kind of Omen feel to the Catholic intrigue, and the historical reenactments were great, like the Times of Christ, the Council of Nicaea. That was all very.
It was
eye
almost
candy.
It was almost a bit too much. Angels and Demons I thought worked better as a thriller, and it was more interesting and more sort of fast paced. I think where the Da Vinci Code fails a bit is it tries to be too actiony, and that's where it sort of fails a little bit, when it tries to be a bit more fast paced and a bit more epic. And I think that story would have worked a little bit better if it was kept a bit more
cerebral.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a very silly sequence where they escape via Ian McKellen's limousine.
Mm-hmm.
These idiot policemen just ignore the fact that he's walking off with a limo and don't check it, and I quite want to watch Inferno.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. I've not seen that yet.
I like the idea of what was Dante's motivations, and what was he getting to. Apparently, all his enemies in life were depicted as various demons in the film, in the book.
Yeah.
But what put me off watching the Da Vinci Code all these years was Stuart Lee's comedy routine about him, and
all right.
I also read a pretty thorough takedown of all the various theories in the book, and none of them really stand up.
Yeah, I mean, it was very much like sort of 50 Shades of Grey, wasn't it? The Da Vinci Code, and there was this big hype about it, and it never sort of lived up to that hype. The films, based on the book. Not that 50 Shades of Grey would particularly have been my kind of film, but it was terrible.
There's something about it that just caught the popular imagination.
Yeah, exactly, and I think you sort of.
It was cool when 50 Shades of Grey came out, when women everywhere were just reading that book. Everywhere you looked, people were talking about it and reading it, and
Yeah, and you sort of see that you have that sort of curiosity to things. Same with Twilight, it's not the kind of thing that I would gravitate towards at all, and it wasn't aimed at me anyway. But I watched the first Twilight and thought it was shite. But I always sort of, you want to sort of have a look at these things that are popular, and these things that are capturing the sort of imagination of the general public, or
keep pace with the zeitgeist.
Yeah, exactly. You want to give things a go, but yeah, I found that with the Da Vinci Code, it wasn't quite. It was fine. It was, it wasn't. But I thought Angels and Demons was a much better film.
Did you ever watch Solo?
I've tried 3 times to watch Solo and not got past the first half of it. I don't know why. I've had that problem with a couple of films.
All right. Did you see where they do the great heist with this kind of ski run toboggan type thing?
No, I don't think I've got that far.
That's the best bit.
Right. Okay. I keep meaning to get back into it, because I did the similar thing with the Winter Soldier, the Captain America sequel. I just couldn't get into the first sort of half hour, and it's once I'd watched the whole thing, it's one of the best MCU films in my opinion. And I've had the same struggle with Mad Max Fury Road. I've got 30 minutes into that about 4 times so far, and I just can't get into it. Whether that's because I'm a big fan of the first 2 films, I don't know, and I just can't get round that it's not
Mel Gibson.
But then I'm also not a massive fan of Mel Gibson either. So it's very strange. It's very strange. Sometimes I'll do that with films. I'll just not be able to get through it. But then
I just got to add my notes, which I love Fury Road. I thought it was a visionary masterpiece.
Yeah, everybody keeps saying that, because
Brendan McCarthy of 2000 AD apparently dug up George Miller and said, look at all these drawings I've done, and the 2 of them work together. I thought it looked amazing, had great action sequences.
I mean, there's
Winter Soldier. I hate Marvel films. There's very few of them I like.
Fair enough. But yeah, I do need to watch Fury Road, because I hope everybody tells me it's really good, and I know there's a sequel coming up soon, isn't there? Furiosa.
Apparently, yeah. Charlize Theron character.
So that's about wraps us up for best Ron Howard picture then, Tarquin.
What else you got? Well, there is this one thing. It's about a killer robot driving instructor that travels back in time for some reason. I'm listening. Okay. Well, you see, this robot, he's got a heartbreaking decision to make about whether his best friend lives or dies. His best friend's a talking pie. Sold! Howard, you've done it again. These happy days are yours and mine. These happy days are yours and mine.
Is there anything...
Hang on. How did... Alright, so in the beginning of Willow, right, Burgle Cunt is dead set on getting Willow's farm, right? Mm-hmm. That's his whole motivation. What kept him from grabbing the farm while Willow was away for all those years? I'll tell you. Willow's wife was serving him hot sex on a platter, morning, noon, and night. That's what happened there.
No, we are not getting into that discussion. That's just wrong. This is Willow and his wife. She cut her damn hair.
You disagree. All right, okay, carry on wrapping up. I had to add that.
So, okay, Tarquin. So, is there anything that you'd either like to plug, or anything that you'd like to let the listeners know how they can maybe get in touch with you, or anything that you'd like to pass on to them?
No, stay away. But I do have a YouTube page, Fassbinder62, one word, FASBINDER 62. I put up mashup videos there. Check that out.
Okay, cool. I'll pop the link for that in the episode detail. But yeah, that's about wraps us up. So that just leaves me to say goodbye, and for Tarquin to say,
I wash my hands and my feet of you.